But no, I would never expect a 16-year-old to have perpetrated crimes such as that.
Why were you carrying a gun in the first place? I mean, that was premeditated to me.
At 3 p.m., Gigi Myrie called her best friend on FaceTime. Ordinary teenage stuff. She mentioned a boy, Keith, coming over later. Nothing about that call sounded like a warning, but 3 days earlier, that same friend had seen something through the screen that she couldn't unsee. Keith, in bed with Gigi, holding a gun, and a threat that he'd kill her if she was ever with someone else. By 5:08 that evening, a neighbor heard something hit a door. By the time Gigi's mother got home from work, her daughter and her 9-year-old brother, Steve, were both gone. That's where this story starts. Not with who Keith James was or what led him there. With a house on Tallis Road in Gwynn Oak, Maryland, and a mother walking into the worst moment of her life. Gigi was 15, Steve was 9, brother and sister. On July 7th, their mother came home from work, walked inside, and found them both shot. Gigi was on a bed. Steve was in the hallway, just outside a bedroom door. She called 911. Their father arrived not long after. To understand how they got there, you have to go back a few days, to a phone call their mother never saw. Gigi had a friend she talked to constantly, someone who knew her day-to-day life better than most adults did. On July 4th, that friend was on FaceTime with Gigi and noticed something in the background she wasn't expecting. A boy, later identified as 16-year-old Keith James, lying in bed next to Gigi, holding a handgun, not hiding it, not tucking it away when the camera turned his direction, just holding it like it was nothing. In the days after, the friend told police that Keith had said something else, something that should have set off alarms, that he'd kill Gigi if she ever messed around with other guys. Gigi was 15. The boy she was seeing had already told her, on camera, what he'd do if she wasn't his. That's not a red flag. That's the whole warning, laid out in advance. 3 days later, on July 7th, that same friend FaceTimed Gigi again. This time at 3 p.m. Gigi told her Keith was coming over, 4 o'clock, nothing dramatic in her voice, just a plan for the afternoon, the kind of thing teenagers say to their friends all the time. By 5:08 p.m., a neighbor heard a projectile strike a nearby front door. It's a small detail, but it's the closest anyone outside that house came to knowing something had gone wrong in real time. Sometime after that, Gigi and Steve were shot, multiple times each. Whatever happened inside that house between 4 and 5:08, only one person walked out able to describe it. Their mother found them not long after. She called 911. And for the next 2 weeks, Baltimore County had a double homicide, a name from a friend's witness statement, and a 16-year-old boy who was about to find out that walking away from a crime scene and getting away with it are two very different things. 2 weeks. That's how long Baltimore County had a double homicide with no name attached to it publicly, no weapon recovered, no confession. Just a house on Tallis Road, 2 kids in a funeral home, and a police department working backward from a friend's witness statement. They started with what they had, a boy named Keith, a phone number, and a description. Then they built outward. Surveillance cameras, MTA buses, neighborhood doorbells, started filling in the gaps. A young man matching Keith's description got off a bus at Liberty Road and Tulsa Road, a stop about half a mile from the Myrie house. He walked in the direction of the crime scene. Cell phone data tied to a number investigators believed was his placed that same phone in the area that afternoon. Then, about an hour later, cameras picked him up again, walking away from the house in different clothes than the ones he arrived in. Different clothes. Not exactly the move of someone with nothing to hide. He got on another bus, headed back into Baltimore City, and for 2 weeks, that was it. No arrest, no name in the news, just detectives quietly stacking bus footage, phone records, and one witness's account of a FaceTime call into a case they were building piece by piece. On July 21st, police finally sat Keith James down for questioning. And here's where it gets almost funny if the circumstances weren't so grim. Keith told investigators he and Gigi had been talking for about 2 months. Fine, That part checked out. Then he told them he hadn't seen her in person since July 4th. That's the part that fell apart. Immediately. Because by July 21st, detectives already had him on a bus heading toward her house on the afternoon of July 7th. They had a phone ping placing him in the neighborhood. They had him walking away from the scene in a different outfit less than an hour later. He picked the one detail he couldn't afford to lie about and lied about it anyway. The next day, Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough stood in front of cameras and confirmed what 2 weeks of quiet investigation had built toward. Keith Maurice James Jr., 16 years old, was under arrest, charged as an adult. 2 counts of murder for Giovanna, Gigi, Myrie, and her 9-year-old brother, Steve Allen. The chief didn't offer a confirmed motive. He did say Keith appeared to have a personal relationship with Gigi, a boyfriend in his words perhaps, and raised the possibility that Steve may have been killed simply because he was there, a witness to whatever happened in that house. That's not a confirmed fact. It's a theory. But it's the only explanation anyone in law enforcement has offered for why a 9-year-old boy ended up dead in a hallway. We utilized all the technology that we had available to us, the chief said. We utilized witness statements. We utilized everything that was made available to us to lead us to the suspect. Keith appeared in Baltimore County District Court by video for his bond hearing. He said nothing. His attorney waived the bail review outright. No argument for release, no attempt to negotiate. Instead, the defense asked for something else. Move Keith to a secured juvenile facility instead of an adult detention center. The state pushed back, arguing he wasn't eligible. The judge agreed, denying the transfer and citing the charges themselves, along with concern for the safety of other juveniles if he were placed among them. Outside the courthouse, Keith's attorney, Brian Thompson, met the cameras with the kind of statement lawyers give when there's nothing else to say yet. This is obviously an unspeakable tragedy, he said. Our hearts and sympathies are with the victims and their families. But I would ask everyone to understand that we're only at the very beginning of this investigation. Our client, like every other citizen in the United States, is entitled to the presumption of innocence. Reasonable words, standard words, the kind every defense attorney says because that's the job. But 2 weeks of bus cameras, phone records, and a story that collapsed the moment someone checked it don't leave a lot of room for reasonable doubt to grow in. Whatever happens next happens in a courtroom, in front of a judge, with the evidence laid out for everyone to see. Keith James was left in custody at the Baltimore County Detention Center. His next stop, an indictment and an initial appearance in circuit court. 2 days before the arrest, Gigi and Steve were laid to rest. Then, within 24 hours, the news broke that police had someone in custody. A community that had spent 2 weeks grieving without answers suddenly had a name and a face. And it was another child. At the press conference announcing the arrest, Baltimore County Executive Kathy Klausmeier asked the public to keep the families in their prayers. It's a simple line, the kind of thing officials say at every press conference like this one. But it landed differently here, because of who was standing next to her. I am just taken aback by the fact that young people at the age of 16 years old would not only have access to a gun, but have the propensity to actually murder someone, she said. This is an absolute sad day for all of us, for our community, for our country, that this type of violence takes place and is being perpetrated by young people. That's really the center of this story, not the bus routes or the phone records or the clothes he changed into. A 16-year-old had a gun. A 15-year-old was in a relationship with him that included him holding that gun on camera and telling her what would happen if she left. And a 9-year-old, who likely had nothing to do with any of it, ended up in the wrong hallway at the wrong time. Chief McCullough put it plainly the night of the arrest. We need to make sure that we know who our kids are associating with. The final issue is dating violence, teen violence, between people who have relationships. We need to be mindful of those things. It's easy to hear that as a talking point. It's harder to sit with what it actually means, that a warning sign showed up on a FaceTime call, witnessed by a friend days before 2 people died, and there was no system in place that could have caught it in time. Not the school, not the parents, not even the friend who saw it, who had no real way of knowing what she was looking at until it was already too late. As for where the case stands, Keith James Jr. is being held without bond at the Baltimore County Detention Center, charged as an adult with 2 counts of first-degree murder. His attorney has said, correctly, that this is early. The case still has to go through indictment, an initial appearance in circuit court, and eventually a trial where the evidence, the bus footage, the phone data, the friend's account, the contradiction in his own statement, will have to hold up in front of a jury instead of just a room full of reporters. He is, under the law, still presumed innocent. That's not a technicality. It's the same protection everyone gets, and it's worth remembering even when the evidence looks the way this evidence looks. What isn't in question is what was lost. Gigi Myrie was 15, Steve Allen was 9, a sister and a brother in their own home on an ordinary July evening. Whatever happens in that courtroom, it won't change the fact that a mother came home from work and found both of her children gone, or that the warning had already been there days earlier in a phone call nobody thought to take seriously until it was too late to matter. This case isn't finished. The next chapter belongs to a courtroom in Towson, Maryland, and to whether the evidence that led police to Keith James Jr. is enough to hold up where it counts. Fair use. Notice, this video is for educational and commentary purposes only. All footage and images used fall under fair use guidelines as protected under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. Call to action. If you enjoy true crime content, make sure to subscribe to Love to Death channel for more shocking cases, in-depth investigations, and updates on stories like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.
Police say that he was taken into custody this morning while they were serving a search and an arrest warrant, and he will be charged as an adult in connection to that shooting in Gwynn Oak that left a 9-year-old and 15-year-old dead and sent shockwaves throughout the community.
But no, I would never expect that 16-year-old to have perpetrated crimes such as that.
Why were you carrying a gun in the first place? I mean, that was premeditated to me.
Several residents voiced their shock after police announced the arrest of 16-year-old Keith James Jr. in connection to the shooting deaths of 9-year-old Steve Allen and his 15-year-old sister, Giovanna Myrie. Their bodies were found on July 7th in their home along Tallis Road in Gwynn Oak.
2 lives were lost. These are lives that will never be realized.
The Baltimore County Police Chief says that they took James into custody Wednesday morning while serving a warrant. They made the announcement before a public safety town hall in Randallstown that evening.
We had an idea of who it might have been, and basically we followed the evidence. You know, we utilized all the technology that we had available to us. We utilized witness statements.
Police say the victims knew of James, but could not say exactly what their relationship was.
This case also highlights for me a couple issues. One is juvenile violence itself, just violence by juveniles on other juveniles. And it also highlights the point that as parents, we need to make sure that we know who our kids are associating with. And the final issue is just dating violence, teen violence, between people who have relationships.
As the investigation continues, people here are continuing to think about the family of the victims.
My heart goes out to you.
I think that's a very sad situation, and my condolences goes out to the family.
Now, the big question is what may have led James to do this. Police did not give us a motive yet, but of course, all of this does remain under investigation. And one thing to note, this all comes just a day after a funeral was held for both of those victims. Reporting live here in Towson, Kyrie Stewart, WBAL TV 11.
We've made an arrest in the July 7th homicide involving Giovanna Myrie and her brother Steve Allen. If you remember back on that date, The homicide occurred in the 6100 block of Tallis Road, in which the brother and sister were murdered. We have arrested a Keith Maurice Jones Jr., who's 16 years of age. What we can tell you is that this individual was known to our 15-year-old victim and also to her 9-year-old brother. He's right now being held in Baltimore County Detention Center with bail denied.